From the banks of the Mississippi to the peaks of the Smokies, this is the home field of champions.
Andre Holloway to Stanley Morgan.
And so, holds it down. Nobody can catch him. Reggie White penetrating.
Touchdown, Heath Shuler. James Stewart.
Manning on the naked handoff.
Peerless Price.
Travis Henry scores for Tennessee.
More than 75 years of broadcast excellence. We are the Vol Network. What happened this weekend? What lies ahead? Analysis and insight from the inside. This is Big Orange. Rewind.
Presented by Calhoun's, a taste of Tennessee. Calhoun's is the perfect place to rewind after every Tennessee game.
This is Big Orange Rewind. With the voice of the Vols, Mike Keith, and VolQuest.com's Brent Hubbs.
Finally, football season is here. Ladies and gentlemen, it is game week. Tennessee preparing to play Syracuse this coming Saturday, noon Eastern time at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Brent Hubbs, everybody excited, ready to get to work as camp is now complete. Game week preparations begin. And here we go through what is going to be a wild, wacky next 5 months towards somebody being declared the national champion.
It's a beautiful train wreck sometimes, right? I mean, it's just the whole 5 months is spectacular because the ebbs and the flows and the twists and the turns that take place around the country, but that take place within your own team is certainly fascinating. It's why everybody has been counting the days down till you get to this point. And now Tennessee getting locked in, getting ready to kick off this season with a bunch of unknowns against a team that has a bunch of unknowns as well.
It's really spooky. Both teams will start quarterbacks who were not with them in spring practice. Both teams have 4 of the 5 starters on the offensive line new. Both teams are markedly different in the wide receiver core. It really is kind of a shocking sort of scenario for both teams, in particular on offense, and for Syracuse, even more shocking on defense as well.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we live in a day and age of the transfer portal, and Syracuse was hit with the transfers. They had 21 players leave their program. They brought in 15 transfers as well. And so they're different. And they've had to move some guys defensively. Take a linebacker and make him a defensive end. Take a defensive end and make him a tackle. Take an end and make him a linebacker. So they've had some personnel movement on the defensive side of the ball, not just newness. Guys who are returning who are going to be playing in some different spots. That was a defense that struggled a year ago. Offensively, they were spectacular. Their whole mantra last year was simply outscore everybody. Fran Brown's a defensive guy, and so you know he wants to get his defense right. They're trying to find all the right pieces, finding it a little bit different on defense than they are on offense. There's some newcomers in the portal, but offensively, I think they may have 7 starters out of the transfer portal, completely revamped on that side of the ball after a big year where they just outscored a bunch of people. I think they averaged like 38 points a game.
Brent Hubbs, let's start things off with the Rackley Roofing recap, highlighting some of the key news and storylines coming out of preseason camp, presented by Rackley Roofing, transforming the roofing industry with unmatched customer service, detailed documentation, and the highest safety standards. Rackley Roofing, the proud official roofer of the Tennessee Volunteers. Overall thoughts from you on Tennessee's camp?
You know, I think it was about building depth in a lot of places. Part of that was because of the injuries. You certainly wanted to see them healthier at the wide receiver spot throughout fall camp. I think the benefit of that is Travis Smith, the freshman from Atlanta, who's going to play and be a big factor right out of the gate. I think the benefactor of that, Rodarius Jackson. But at the same time, too, Braylon Staley needed as much work as he could get, and he missed some time. Mike Matthews only missed a couple days. That's not of any kind of note to me. I think overall it's the emergence of some guys on the offensive line. Where's their cohesiveness? But the Jesse Perrys of the world saying, it's my job. I'm taking it. I'm not giving it up. Okay? Y'all can come at me with whatever, but I want this job. And I think he's going to win that job.
Talk about right guard?
Yeah, right guard. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Mike, I think it is building some depth and finding some answers in the secondary. I think Colton Hood is not talked about enough, the transfer from Colorado who arrived here in the spring. thought to be maybe a little bit of an insurance blanket for Jamad McCoy while he works his way back. The fact of the matter is Colton Hood gives you some security and luxury in a couple of different places. He could play star if need be, the nickelback position. He could play corner. There's a nice depth piece of a guy who's going to be potentially a starter for you out of the gate. And then I think Ty Redmond's emergence and what he's done as a freshman puts him in a position that they can rotate at corner with a freshman and build some depth there. They've manufactured through fall camp some more depth in the secondary than you thought they might have had when fall camp started. I think Willie Martinez and Tim Banks have done a really good job of doing that.
All right, I want to hit two things very quickly. A lot of people under the impression that Sam Pendleton, the Notre Dame transfer, will end up the starting center. And you mentioned you think Jesse Perry's grabbing that right guard spot. Let's go over Jesse Perry's story for just a second. He played at Middle Tennessee Christian, smaller school in Murfreesboro, comes to Tennessee, goes through a redshirt year. He's a big guy, and his emergence has been really sudden to a lot of people, but he's been building all the way because he's kind of that Tennessee typical lineman from years gone by. He can be the backup at both tackle spots and a starter at right guard potentially.
and in a pinch could probably play center for you. He snapped some in his redshirt freshman year on the practice field. This is a great evaluation by the Tennessee coaching staff in the recruiting process because you're trying to evaluate a guy who needs to put on 40 or 50 pounds to play at this level. He's done that. You're trying to evaluate, he played tackle his whole life. Can he play inside at guard? So when you have him at camp, you're looking at specific things that those coaches look at that's way over my head, but you're looking for certain things with feet and movement, and you're projecting. And his projection has been that he would become this player. He's just done it faster, I think, than a lot of people think or thought that he would. Smart guy. As Glenn Ellerby, the offensive line coach, said earlier in fall camp, doesn't make a lot of the same mistakes twice, committed to being really good, wants to be good. It means the world to him to get to play at the University of Tennessee as an in-state guy. And again, I think his competitive nature said, here's my window, here's my chance. Maybe it's earlier than everybody thought. I'm not going to surrender it.
If Wendell Moy, the Arizona transfer, is the left guard, he's 6'2", 330, and every bit of that. Incredibly solid. We mentioned Pendleton. He's 6'4", about 310 pounds. Perry is 6'6", 320-ish. Tennessee bigger in the interior three than a year ago? Big deal?
I think it's not only, Mike, that they're bigger, they're longer. And I think the longness of them and their reach and their ability to get out in space and move better with some of the pulling stuff and different things that they do, that the size and the heavier weight, I think, helps you be more physical. But I think that length helps them a lot. I mean, you think about this. Wendell Moy is a long guy. He's not a short-armed guard. He's played right tackle early in his career at Arizona. We just talked about Jesse Perry. He could play either tackle spots inside at guard. So these are longer guys, and I think that length will help them as much as the weight will help them. I think they've got a chance to be more physical than they've been in the last couple of years. We'll see if that's how it plays out, but it certainly looks that way. You like the way this offensive line looks. You've seen them a lot. They're built the right way. Physically, they look the part for sure.
So much talk about freshman David Sanders playing the right tackle. Lance Hurd looks a lot better physically than he did a year ago for a lot of reasons. I think his health is one thing. He has shed some weight, remade his body. Both Sanders and Hurd are long players. And then you've got Chad Umaroff, who is a guy, and Sham has come on at the guard position. He might earn some time. William Satterwhite at the center position may get some time. We mentioned Perry may bounce out to the tackle spot. They could play 7 or 8 offensive linemen against Syracuse on Saturday, and Glenn Ellerby likes to do that.
Well, he does. He's not had the opportunity to do that since they've been here. If you go back to when they were at Central Florida, this offensive staff with Josh Heupel and Glenn Ellerby, they would routinely, Mike, bring in a second set of guards in the second quarter because of the tempo. They could feel maybe that defense getting a little tired. Let's stay fresh. Let's get fresh. We'll bring some new guys in and actually rotate up there, which you don't see. A lot of teams go with their 5 for continuity purposes. They really would love to play 6 or 7 guys. Maybe it's a third tackle. Maybe it's a third guard. We'll see if they get to there. They've wanted to the last 4 years. It's just never really presented itself as they've built this roster.
You're listening to the Big Orange Rewind presented by Calhoun's, a taste of Tennessee. You can text us your questions at 865-657-1278, 865-657-1278. Let's go to the text line right away. Good question from Kevin in Columbia. He says, we seem to be deep and talented at tight end. Do you see more 12 personnel this season? Does true freshman Desan Brame get in the rotation early?
I don't know that you'll see more 12 personnel because they lived in it last year. I mean, they played a ton of it last year.
And for those who don't know, 12 personnel is 1 back, 2 tight ends.
Yes, and so I think that they've taken last year they took a receiver out of the equation because they had some injuries there, and they went to the 12 personnel with the 2 tight ends. I think they feel comfortable with 4 tight ends. I really do. Now, I don't think you're going to see them play the 2 freshmen and Jack Van Dorselaer and Desan Brame at the same time. I think you would mix those in with a veteran guy like Miles Kitselman, like Ethan Davis. But I think you can mix and match and play those guys in there. And I think you have to. I think for 2 reasons. One, those positions get banged up a lot, as we know. They ask the tight end to do a ton of things in this offense. 2, we live in a day and age where you better play them early. Not a lot of kids are comfortable just sitting and waiting and watching because they can leave whenever they want to leave. It's becoming a younger man's game in a lot of ways. Tennessee's made a commitment to play younger players. And because of that, Mike, they didn't go deep in the portal for 12 or 14 guys to fill. They said, you know what? Ethan Davis, now is your time. I don't need another tight end to come in from the transfer portal. We're going to play these young guys. That includes those 2 tight ends. I think when you look at this team offensively in fall camp, what's the biggest surprise offensively? Everybody's focus is on the quarterback, and rightfully so. To me, it's the depth at tight end. The fact that Jack Van Dorselaer's ready physically to hold up now, maybe not dominate, but he can hold up now. And you've seen Brame. Brame's a different type of athlete out there, but he's put on almost 40 pounds. He's a lot more physical than he was when he arrived in January.
And the 5th tight end, Cole Harrison, will probably play special teams.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good-looking room. That's a room that they have really tried to build over the last 4 years. Getting Kitselman back for the extra year was a huge deal. It's funny. It wasn't talked about a whole lot, Mike, just like he wasn't talked about a whole lot when he transferred in, but that was a big get when he transferred in. It was a really big get to keep him here for another year.
Next text line question at 865-657-1278 comes from Philadelphia, Tennessee. And Daniel wants to know, do you think Tennessee will utilize more tempo and motion into the offense than they did last season? And who is a receiver to watch that could surprise fans?
For me, the receiver is Rodarius Jackson. I like Rodarius Jackson. I like his game. I think he's further along from a mental standpoint and understanding. He's a little more polished as a receiver than I thought he would be coming out of high school. I like his game. I think he's going to be a guy that's really interesting. Now, in the slot receivers position, they need Braylon Staley to be the guy. That's got to be the surprise because he didn't play a whole lot last year. I think Braylon Staley is a must to stay healthy, and he's a must to be an impact guy in the slot for sure.
What about more tempo and motion in the offense?
The motion part is unique because they haven't shown a whole lot of that. But do they – coaches, I mean, when coaches look at this and you do your self-scout, what did teams do against us that caused problems? With some of the motion stuff that some teams showed against Tennessee last year, in particular Ohio State to close out the season in the playoffs, is that something you think you can incorporate into your system? I think that's something they have toyed with and looked around at. How much will we see it? I don't know. The tempo part they always want to go to. You got to do some things right to go tempo. You got to win on first down. The rules are a little bit, when you go out of bounds on your sideline, that changes things. They hold it up. So it's not as easy to go as fast as you went 3 or 4 years ago. But I think it's still there, and I think Tennessee wants to go fast because I think they think it's an advantage if they get that thing cooking, particularly early, with positive wins on first down. Don't you think?
Absolutely. That's the Reckley Roofing recap here on Big Orange Rewind. We've got more of your questions from the text line at 865-657-1278, 865-657-1278. The Big Orange Rewind is presented by Calhoun's.
Big Orange Rewind.
Sponsored by First Horizon. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee. Complete coverage for every phase of life.
By the natural gas utilities and pipeline companies in Tennessee.
Natural gas.
Pilot, the official travel stop of the Vols. See you out here. RJV Kubota, with 2 convenient locations in Knoxville and Nashville. And by Ford. Visit your local Ford dealer, proud sponsor of the Tennessee Volunteers.
For 48 straight years, Ford F-Series have been the best-selling trucks in America. We got here by engineering breakthrough technology, redefining Built Ford Tough, and never settling for second best. But what's really made Ford F-Series the #1 selling trucks in America is you. Ford F-Series, Built Ford Tough. Based on 1977 to 2024 calendar year total sales.
There are big banks with large capital resources, and there are small banks that go above and beyond. And there's a bank in Tennessee that offers both. You guessed it, First Horizon. They're big enough to offer tailored solutions to help retail and business customers, but small enough to maintain that personal touch. No opportunity too big, no detail too small. First Horizon, big bank muscle, small bank hustle, and the official bank of the Vols.
Tennessee fans, your game day isn't complete without Calhoun's. Whether you're inside Neyland Stadium for the game or tailgating on campus or at home, Calhoun's has you covered with shareable small bites, family feed packs, and party platters. Imagine your tailgate piled high with hickory smoked ribs, tender pulled pork, and that famous barbecue chicken. The best of Tennessee on one plate. Call ahead or order online and make your game day legendary. Calhoun's, a taste of Tennessee.
It's football time in Tennessee, and Alumni Hall is the place to gear up for your Tennessee Vols. Shop the largest and newest selection of top brands like Nike, Columbia, Peter Millar, New Era, Yeti, and more. Mix and match champion tees, 2 for $38, and spend $150 to earn $10 Hall cash for your next visit. Shop AlumniHall.com. Visit Alumni Hall in Knoxville, Murfreesboro, Bristol, or Johnson City, or download their app. Alumni Hall, the ultimate volunteer shopping destination.
A look back and what's next. Big Orange Rewind, presented by Calhoun's.
Glad you're with us on this Sunday night. 6 days to go before the season opener. Tennessee, Syracuse, in Atlanta. 4th all-time meeting. Actually, the 4th different place these schools will have played. They played in Jacksonville, in Syracuse, in Knoxville, and now they will have played in Atlanta.
Yeah, and they've all been interesting matchups when you look at it. Obviously, the 98 game certainly stands out for what that meant. That was a Tennessee team, Mike, that went up there and had not done anything offensively. You thought, man, they're going to have to just almost pitch a shutout to have a chance to win up there, and it turns into a shootout game. And you go back and look, man, Syracuse had a lot of good players on the field that day. So did Tennessee. And in the 0-1 game here, Tennessee was in some control of it, and then messed around late, let it get a little bit close, and they lost Dante Stallworth to a broken hand on an onside kick at the end of that game.
Only good thing that really happened that day for the Vols in a win that was kind of lackluster. Travis Stevens got going for the first time since 1998 and went on to a record-setting season. Back to the text line, 865-657-1278. Rick says, so the defense is not getting much love, though it's top 10. Shut the opponent out and you've got a chance. Well, I would certainly agree with that. This defense was really good a year ago, gave up 293 yards and 16 points per game. More impressively, only 30% third down conversions. They were great on 4th down. They did everything well. Can they be good again?
I think they can be. And the reason I say that, Mike, is because they've built they've had a lot of roster build, development of players on this defense, and they've played a lot of people through this build. And what I mean by that is, so Jackson Moy has played a good amount of football, even though he's only played one season at Tennessee. Jordan Ross got his feet wet a year ago. Caleb Herring's played. Tyree West has played. You look in the second level at linebacker, Arion Carter and Jeremiah Thielander. And then we talked a little bit about the secondary. I mean, Ricky Gibson's a great developmental guy. 20 pounds heavier. I think he played well last year. He's a lot more physical now than he has been. I think Turrentine's going to be better. Andre Turrentine at safety will be better in that role this year than he was last year, so he was sort of learning. But they've played a bunch of bodies. And so what you feel like is it's not a complete rebuild when you lose guys to the NFL as they have. It's more of a, I won't say complete reload, but it's easier to put. This will be a different, I think a little bit different type defense than a year ago, particularly early until they get all settled with health and everything back there. Last year, they didn't have to blitz a lot. They won early downs. They got in the 3rd and 7, 3rd and 8, and they played coverage and just said, hey, our front four we think can affect the quarterback. We may not get a bunch of sacks, but we're going to affect the quarterback. He can throw a 5-yard slant. We'll tackle you, and you can punt the football. And that happened a lot, as evident by the stats that they had. Really good defense last year. I think Tim Banks is underrated as a defensive coordinator. I don't think he gets all the credit he deserves around the country. I think he's done a terrific job building his style here over the last 4 years.
You know, Tim Banks, though, has been a defensive coordinator or a co-defensive coordinator every season since 2007.
He's experienced.
So, I mean, this is year 19 running a defense somewhere, and you just sort of watch his team and understand that they get what he wants.
Yeah, because he has a true identity. You know, he hits multiple, he can do things, but he has a clear understanding of where the most important places are, what are the most important things for him. The other thing I like about this defense is you look, they've gotten better, obviously, across the board, but like a year ago, the big focal point last offseason, better in the red zone, better on 3rd down, particularly 3rd and long. Where were they better? Red zone, 3rd down. I mean, they go out and they focus on some things and they get better. I think he has a good plan. I think you look and see as he's gotten his pieces in place, that plan's been effective. They've been a really good defense. I mean, what they did in the first half last year kept Tennessee in football games because the offense was struggling to get in the end zone. They were pitching shutouts. They're giving up 3 points. I mean, they didn't give up a touchdown in the first half until the first quarter to the Arkansas game last year, halfway through the season. Really good play, particularly to start games.
I want to take this question and turn it toward defense. Jimmy in Knoxville asks, what player have we not talked enough about this offseason? Give me a defensive guy that fits that for Jimmy.
I think it's Ricky Gibson because it's the extra 20 pounds. I think that makes him a more effective player. I think the other guy who may show up is Jalen McMurray because I think he may be your star guy. We'll see what happens with Boo Carter, how much they rotate there. McMurray can play corner. He can play star. I think he's a guy that's going to make some impact plays. If you're going in the front 7 and you go to the second level, Edwin Spillman, if you follow this team really closely, you know who Edwin Spillman is. If you just kind of watch him on Saturdays and you don't deep dive into the roster and break it down in the offseason for yourself, Edwin Spillman's a name I think everybody's going to get to know because he plays violent, he plays fast. And I think that's a guy who's going to have a chance to be a good player. Up front, I think we're all curious to see what Tyree Weathersby does off the edge as a strong side defensive end. And then Jordan Ross, is he got a chance to be the next real true edge rusher who can really affect the quarterback? I think he has a lot to his game. I don't think he understood the commitment you had to make a year ago as a freshman. I think he gets that now, and I think you've seen him take a pretty big step over the last 6 months.
Do you get the sense that Ross is Joshua Joseph's backup at Leo for the most part, and that Caleb Herring will play some of that and the defensive end spot?
I think when they go rabbits, they can put two Leos on the field, and Herring would be the guy that would probably slide over and be that. They're different. You know, James Pierce was a really effective pass rusher, a great first step. They're different at the Leo position this year. A little bit heavier, I think a little bit stronger physically, probably be a little bit better against the run. The question is, can Joseph, and he's talked about it, finish at the quarterback? He affected the quarterback. Does he finish better? He played really well last year, was terrific against the run. Can he impact the quarterback a little bit more? And what do they do when they go to that Rabbits package? Is Don Bailey sliding inside from strong side in to tackle? Is it Tyree West. What does that look like? I think they have some versatility. They were a little more set last year, Mike. I think they do have some more versatility. They can mix and match some different personnel groupings up front.
This is from Jeff in Dunlap, Tennessee. Can you give us an update on the kicking game, kickoff, field goals, and punting?
Well, they bring them all back, so it's a luxury. I mean, the fact that Jackson Ross is back at your punter, who was really good a year ago. Max Gilbert had a little game or two, but he righted the ship really well, was terrific down the stretch.
What did he make his last 8 to end the year?
And he was solid. I mean, just really, really solid. Made some they weren't all 25-yarders. I mean, he made some 40, 45-yard kicks up into the 50-yard range. So I think he's better. Maybe the most undervalued guy by fans is Josh Turbeville, because everything goes through the end zone on a kickoff for the most part, unless you're trying to sky kick it or get a little bit cute sometimes. He could just crank that thing through the back of the end zone. He's also the backup punter. He's also the backup place kicker. And so his value is really key for Tennessee. But you're breaking in, Bennett Brady, a new snapper. He snapped some last year. He's new, but your holder's back, your place kicker's back, your punter's back, your kickoff guy is back. So from a kicking standpoint, I think you feel really good about where this team is, because there's not many teams in the country that have as much experience kicking the ball as this Tennessee team is going to have.
Who are the returners?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
Hey, you're pretty good at
Thank
this,
you.
right? First time, right? First time host.
First time caller.
First time caller, first time host. I think, where's Boo Carter? If he's ready to go and he's doing everything he's supposed to do off the field, he's as dynamic with the ball in his hands as a punt returner as Tennessee has seen in a while. I mean, he was that way in high school. It was one of those deals where it's like, are you sure you don't want to find a way to get the ball in his hands? But if he's committed to it, then I think he's your punt returner, and he's going to be terrific in that role. The question is he ready to go, and is he continuing to do everything he needs to do? The kickoff return job, that's such a unique play now in college football, because so many guys kick it out of the back of the end zone.
Do you know how many kickoffs Tennessee actually returned last year?
Versus fair catch?
Just total returned kickoffs. Do you know the number?
I don't know it right off the top of my head.
I can tell you.
I'm sure you can.
14.
Yeah, I'd start
So
saying.
the question is, with Evan Crabtree now being in charge of special teams, John Bonamago's here too, who comes in from the NFL, really good special teams coach. Do they change philosophies and start trying to run back kickoffs?
I think it depends on what the kicker's doing. I think that you're because when they.
But I mean, let's face it, not to totally interrupt, but Tennessee had no interest in returning kickoffs at all last year.
No, it was a fair catch play
every time.
Yeah, I think it will still be that unless the kicker gives you. You think going into that game, that kicker gives you an opportunity, because if you're sky kicking it and they're kicking it and trying to pin you down at the 3-yard line, what are the chances you're going to get to 25 versus the penalty? Do you feel better about putting the ball down at the 25 and playing? And I think that's where Tennessee's been. I'm not sure that philosophy changes.
A lot of questions upcoming. We're going to run off a lot of your text questions at 865-657-1278. Brent Hubbs is here. I'm Mike Keith. This is the Big Orange Rewind, presented by Calhoun's.
When getting the job done right is job one, you need construction equipment that's built right. From compact track loaders to the world's #1 selling compact excavator, the Kubota construction lineup features durable Kubota engines, more comfort, and the versatility to do it all and do it right. Visit your local Kubota dealer today. Go to KubotaUSA.com for full disclaimer.
Visit RJV Kubota locally in Knoxville or Nashville. RJV Kubota, a proud supporter of the Vols.
Rackley Roofing is now the official roofer of the Vols, and Rackley is more than a roofing company. They're part of the communities where they work and live, investing in neighborhoods and opening doors to a career in an industry that's growing year after year. Rackley Roofing's mission is clear: transform the roofing industry with unmatched customer service, detailed documentation, and the highest safety standards. Because Rackley believes the ladder to a great roof is only as good as the people who climb it. Rackley Roofing, building roofs, building futures.
UT fans know it takes teamwork to win. And when you choose Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee, you get a team who served Tennesseans for 80 years. From babies to seniors, big needs to small, we offer health coverage that fits your life and your budget. All from a company right here in your community. Now that's what we call a big win. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee.
Vol Nation, if you're looking for quality performance apparel, look no further than Turtleson. Founded by UT alumni out of Bristol, Tennessee, Turtleson designs clothes and accessories that fit your lifestyle. From the office to the country club or the Tennessee Volunteers tailgate, Turtleson has the apparel that looks as good as it feels. Ask for Turtleson wherever you buy your volunteer gear or visit Turtleson.com to learn more. Turtleson is a proud sponsor of the Vol Network. Go Vols!
The Big Orange Rewind continues, presented by Calhoun's.
Need a haircut? With the Great Clips app, you could put your name on the list from anywhere and head to the salon when you're up next. Because getting a great haircut shouldn't mean putting your life on hold. Great Clips. It's going to be great. It's going to be great to take as many of your text questions as possible. We appreciate the good feedback. I can't believe that we have not discussed Joey Aguilar yet, but that is going to change thanks to Nick and Brentwood. For those of us who haven't spent time watching film on Joey Aguilar, what type of player or traits should we expect to see on Saturday against Syracuse?
I think an athletic, confident guy who's going to let it rip at times. And I think there's a fine line on where letting it rip is in a good way and being careless with the ball. And I think he, I won't say walks that line, but he probably pushes towards that line a little bit, and that's the makeup of his game. But I think he's a guy with confidence and a guy who's not going to be afraid to push the ball down the field.
David Franklin wants to know, how much does Joey Aguilar's game experience mean in terms of his ability to make the correct reads and potentially effectively run RPOs?
I think a lot, and this offense is different than anything he's played in, but you can't take away the fact, Mike, that he's played, 24 football games at the collegiate level? That has to count for something, even though it's new. I'm sure there'll be growing pains. There'll be some issues here and there along the way, but I think his improvement from scrimmage 1 to scrimmage 2, just in managing the game, controlling the offense, that's where that experience showed up, and it's paid off.
Chad in Knoxville wants to know, teams have played a lot of too high safeties, or they did last year, to limit our deep passing game. What are some ways you see us tweaking our offense to be able to attack that defensive adjustment?
Well, I think you got to get guys on the move a little bit more, and I think that's where some of the motion stuff that's talked about. But I think some of your routes are guys on the move routes, okay? You're trying to hit them in stride. It's not all a comeback type stuff. I think teams after 22, the 22 season said, you know what, let's see if they can do something for 12 plays in a row or 10 plays in a row, as opposed to 4 plays and 75 yards. Let's see if they can stay on schedule the whole time, and we'll see how committed they are. I think that's why the red zone offensive stat is the biggest stat for this offense this season. Everybody wants to talk about explosives, 20-plus yard plays. Very important. You got to get them back in your offense and get them going. But, man, you got to finish in the red zone. That's where they've got to be better, because teams are going to try to take that deep stuff away.
Jordan in Maryville says, how has Mike Matthews looked during off-season training, and what strengths or weaknesses has he shown?
I think his strength is his ability to go get the ball. I think he tracks the ball well. I think he's got good speed. I think it's his ability to go get it. And if there's a weakness, I think he's got to continue to get physical at the line of scrimmage against press man coverage. Some people are going to get up in his face and say, hey, can you beat us that way? We're going to get real handsy with you. We'll take a holding penalty. We'll see if we can frustrate you. How physical are you going to be getting off the line of scrimmage against press man coverage? I think that's the growing pain for every young receiver coming through in college football.
If you're listening to the Big Orange Rewind presented by Calhoun's, you probably are getting the impression that we're talking ball here with you, taking your text questions, and that's exactly the case. You're very, very, very into it with us. 865-657-1278, 865-657-1278. Any news on which wide receivers are connecting best with Joey Aguilar? Troy in Oliver Springs has that question.
I don't know that there is any one thing. Summers are so different now, and I'm not going to go on a long tangent, but it's different in that used to it was which quarterback organized the throwing sessions. Now they throw all the time because there's walkthrough practices and they're just it's a year-round commitment different than it used to be. I think all those guys feel pretty good in all three of the quarterbacks with their comfort level there. They'll dial it in, and they started dialing it in last week once Joey was named the starter in terms of some of those rotations with those guys. But I think they all feel comfortable with them.
Who do you think gets the majority of snaps at running back to start the season? Star Thomas, Deshaun Bishop, or Peyton Lewis? That comes from Ben in Knoxville.
Oh, Darrell Sims has got a real interesting decision to make. Not a bad decision, but it's going to be a challenge managing reps with those guys. I think Bishop is your first guy out of the gate. I think he's earned it. I think he's the most experienced guy. I think Peyton Lewis has had a heck of an offseason. Remember, his freshman year coming in, had the injuries, had the surgeries he was recovering from, really lost that summer from a development standpoint. He's had a great summer this summer. So I think they're kind of 1A and 1B, but then Star Thomas said in the scrimmages, hey, don't forget about me. I can play. And he was very successful everywhere he's been. New Mexico State, Duke, he's been very productive. So how do they manage three running backs? A season ago, Darrell Sims' first year at Tennessee, it was all about Dylan Sampson. That's where they went. They rode that hot hand. He's now got more weapons to choose from. How does he manage it? How does he deal with multiple running backs compared to what he did in year one?
So Dylan Sampson last year set the all-time scoring record for a season, the all-time rushing touchdowns record for a season, obviously the all-time touchdowns record in a season, and the all-time rushing yardage record in a season. Hats off to him.
Right.
Super player. Was not real involved in the passing game. A lot of NFL teams had questions about him and how he would adapt to the NFL passing game. It feels like Bishop, Lewis, and in particular Thomas all have a lot of upside in the passing game. Is that crazy?
No, I don't think it's crazy at all, particularly with Star Thomas. I think if you look at his history and where he's come from, he's been an integral part of the passing game. They have included him in that. Now, the question is how much in the tweaks. We had an earlier question from someone on the text line who wanted to know about changes, more motions. What would we see different in the offense? Maybe the backs are more involved in the offense in the passing game, and they can do some different things with them. I think all three of these guys can catch the ball, but I think Star Thomas has proven he can do it at this level. He's been much more productive as a receiving running back than the other two guys have. But I think all three of them have worked extensively on their hands this summer because that sounds like it could be a part.
Let's go to Mountain City. And Brian, have you guys seen or heard how Aguilar is bonding with the team?
That's the best thing Joey Aguilar did when he came in. He did not come in with any kind of preconceived notion of I'm the guy. He didn't, I joked earlier on another show, he didn't arrive in the limo, so to speak, and like, hey, the Savior's here. He came in, put his head down, no fanfare, no real social media buzz about him. He didn't put anything out there. He and his team didn't do a bunch of stories about him. He just came in and went to work and got to know people. Because, again, when you've done it before, and that's what Joey Aguilar has done, he rolled in kind of unannounced in junior college. Nobody knew who he was, bonded. He goes to App State, same thing. He has transitioned like this before. So he's very understanding in that I got to win the locker room. That's the biggest thing I need to do when I get here. I got to learn the offense and win the locker room. And I think he really bonded with his teammates really well because of his approach in that. He just got to know guys, went to dinner, hung out with them, and that type of thing. I think it was big.
How has Jordan Ross looked? Will he be in the rotation at all? That comes from Scott in Springfield.
Yes, you will see him early. I think you will see him in the rotation. I think he will be a part. I think he has had a good summer. He was okay in the spring, a little bit banged up. They had to get him healthy. Coach Harbin, Coach Chop, who's now coaching Leo's, recruited him, knows his mental makeup, has pushed him really hard this summer. And Jordan has openly spoke about how his commitment to everything beyond playing on Saturday has changed. Nutrition, recovery, taking care of his body, taking care of the little things in the film room. He's starting to understand the commitment level that is required at this level of college football because it's different. And I think he's grasping that, which is why you're going to see him be a part of this rotation.
Don't you think that happens a lot with five stars?
That's absolutely. And five stars who played multiple sports. He was also a basketball guy And so it was one of those deals where, what are you doing in the summer? Well, I'm going to camps. I'm taking 12 unofficial visits. I'm going to see all these places and do things. I'll be ready give me a couple of weeks of work. We'll be ready for week 0 with the high school ranks. And then he rolls into basketball. And then, yes, to answer your question, I think it's much more common than you think. I think that's why David Sanders is a unicorn in some ways. He's different. He understood what he needed to do to gain weight and all the commitment he had to make to get himself ready. The difference was Jordan Ross knew when he came in last year. Caleb Herring was on the roster. Joshua Joseph's on the roster. James Pierce is on the roster. Well, where am I going to play? I'm going to redshirt anyway, right? And so I think it's harder for that. Whereas David Sanders goes, wait a minute, Larry Johnson transferred out. I'm starting right tackle. I got to get my rear end ready.
Well, so Jordan Ross in the Chattanooga game blocks a punt, returns it 13 yards for a touchdown. I'm sure in his mind he's thinking, well, this is just like high school.
Yeah, this is not a hard game.
I can do this.
Right.
I've already scored a touchdown in college, and I've played one game.
Yes. And so I think because of some of that, and that's part of the adjustment to coaching styles, adjustment to everything you had to do, it is hard for those guys because when you call home, everybody goes, hey, man, I watched the game. I didn't see you. Where are you at? You're the 5-star all-world. What are you doing going up there? And so you sort of go through the ebbs and flows because early on in the Chattanooga game, everybody goes, oh, man, you're the guy. And then all of a sudden you don't play a whole lot. Well, where'd you go? What happened to you? It's hard. It's hard for those young players who have all that acclaim coming in.
Talk some recruiting philosophy with Brent Hubbs, who's an expert on recruiting, as the Big Orange Rewind, presented by Calhoun's, continues. Your text questions, keep them coming, 865-657-1278.
It's football time in Tennessee, and that means it's time for Calhoun's. Whether you're headed to the game or watching from home, make Calhoun's your pregame, postgame, and every game headquarters. From hickory smoked pulled pork to the legendary ribs, juicy burgers, and mouth-watering brisket, Calhoun's delivers the flavor that fuels Big Orange fans. With 9 convenient East Tennessee locations, there's a Calhoun's near you. So gather your friends, wear your orange, and experience why they're the taste of Tennessee. Calhoun's, proud to serve ball fans since 1983.
A farm, a family, and a tradition of premium fresh sausage that's lasted almost a century. Using only the freshest ingredients and finest cuts of meat for flavor that is locked in instantly. Each bite of Swaggerty's Farm sausage transports you back to a warm, cozy southern kitchen, leaving you satisfied and ready to take on the day. Swaggerty's Farm, quite possibly the best tasting sausage in America. Now available at your local retailers.
Coach Josh Heupel on decision making.
With our offensive play calling, we have to make decisions quickly. But there's one decision I don't have to make, my bank. Instead of choosing between big bank solutions and small bank spirit, I get the best of both with First Horizon.
Big bank muscle, small bank hustle.
For every play in life, there's a bank that has your back. That's First Horizon. Proudly serving Tennesseans for over 160 years. The Vol Walk is a legendary journey from Circle Park to Gate 21 at Neyland Stadium. This is Coach Josh Heupel. Speaking of legendary journeys, Pilot's been out here fueling game day road trips and tailgates for over 60 years. That's why they've partnered with the Vols to preserve Neyland Stadium, ensuring that traditions like the Vol Walk endure for generations to come. Next time you head out to cheer on the Vols, make your game day journey legendary with a stop at Pilot. See you out here.
The Vol Network's Big Orange Rewind continues. Presented by Calhoun's.
Remember, Calhoun's has 9 convenient locations in Knoxville and surrounding areas. And look for Calhoun's inside Neyland Stadium this year.
Yes, sir.
Starting with the ETSU game on September the 6th.
Will they have potato skins on their menu?
I don't know.
I love the potato skins.
You do?
Yes, I'm
a
a big fan of their potato skins. I like their menu, but I love those potato skins, man. They're terrific.
Calhoun's. All right, Brent Hubbs, can you believe that Tennessee football has more players on their current roster from Maryland, 4, Colorado, 2, Kansas, 2, both tight ends, Miles Kitselman and Desan Brame. So they have more players on their roster from Maryland, Colorado, and Kansas than they do from the state of Florida. The Vols only have one player from the state of Florida, fourth-year man Brian Grant, in the offensive line. You have a theory as to why this has sort of changed, an area where Tennessee spent a lot of time fighting it out for years. They seem to have altered the philosophy and maybe gone in a different direction, and it appears to be working for sure.
Yeah, I think they've gone to where their relationships are. You know, everybody thinks because this staff came from Central Florida, they had all these great ties to Florida, but they weren't. They were there a hot minute. I mean, it's not like they were 10-year veterans in the state of Florida and had built a roster with a bunch of Florida guys when they were at Central Florida. That was just not the case. So I think when you look around, there's more ties to the Midwest on this staff. When you look at some of the history of where guys have come from, there are more ties in Virginia with coaches. There are more ties in North Carolina. And I think the footprint that Tennessee's looking at is, hey, you know what? North Carolina's been good to the University of Tennessee for a long, long time in recruiting. Let's go back and get heavily involved in North Carolina because the top players in that state seem to be leaving that state. So let's go get involved there. I think you look, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think you see a lot of movement in the state of Florida after the fact, a lot of guys transferring and moving around. And I think you're always competing with – there's a lot of schools off of I-75 between Knoxville and the end of the state down there. We got Miami, Florida, Florida State, come back up, you got Georgia, Auburn. There's a lot of places that you can stop sooner than you can at the University of Tennessee, and I think it's a philosophy thing that Tennessee has approached.
Well, we mentioned in Kansas, Desan Brame and Miles Kitselman, 2 quality players that are going to play for you this year. In Maryland, Idris Farouk, Dominic Bailey, Jalen McMurray, 3 guys who are going to play on Saturday. That's certainly a big deal. And then you go to North Carolina. Charles House is a freshman defensive lineman who shows promise. May not be needed this year, but he certainly shows promise. Obviously, David Sanders is pretty good. He's all right.
He's okay.
Yeah,
I think he's going to be all right.
David Hobbs is banged up right now, but he's a defensive lineman who's going to play for you. Isaiah Campbell from Durham is a football player who's going to play for you. You're very excited about. And then Sam Pendleton, who you got back from Notre Dame, but that you recruited very hard coming out of Lawsonville, North Carolina, when he was a high school player.
Yeah, and go back to the state of Maryland right quick when you talk about why is Idris Farouk interested in Tennessee? Don Bailey's here, okay? Knows each other. So he comes down on a visit. Hey, what's it like here? Hey, it's a pretty cool place. Okay, Jalen McMurray is a transfer guy who was probably looking for the school that gave him the best opportunity to get on the field, and Tennessee fit there. Kitselman goes to Alabama looking for an opportunity, and so there's a transfer there. But because of Kitselman's success here, when you go start to recruit Desan Brame, right, and you're trying to get into that one and get that home, he talks to Kitselman, hey, you're a Kansas guy. What's it like over there? It's great. You'll love every bit of it. Trust me, you'd much rather play in the South. Come play in the South. Come be a part of things in the SEC. Come to Tennessee. So it's the relationship stuff that factors in there as well, player to player, not just player to coach.
And, of course, it jumps out to you, too, that Tennessee has a player on its roster this year from Wisconsin, Trey Poteet from Pittsburgh, Wisconsin. Good-looking young corner who's done a nice job in camp. I want to go back to Virginia for a second because you talk about Peyton Lewis, and he's a highly recruited player out of Salem, which is near Roanoke. Historically, Tennessee has had a lot of good ones from the state of Virginia. The more they can get in there, it feels like the better things are for them.
Yeah, no doubt. And you've got a state right now that's a little bit in flux in terms of where they are with their football programs. Okay, Virginia's had a hard time. Virginia Tech is not where they were with Frank Beamer, obviously. So now you got a window to get in there. Here's the other thing too. The world's small these days. You know, it used to be a big deal. This guy's going to come, somebody's going to come from that far away. The world doesn't feel like that anymore. With social media and all the ability to communicate through text messages and phone messages, everybody knows everybody in different parts of the world. it just doesn't. It's not like you're getting on the train and coming from the West Coast. It's not as big a deal to go that far as it used to be. And so you just go to where players you like, because there's nobody you say, well, you don't have a chance to go to Wisconsin and get a player. Why not? People are traveling all over the country, because if they don't like it, they go in the portal and move on anyway. So I think you don't have to just recruit regionally. You can go after guys around the country.
And good news with McGee-Tyson Airport having more direct flights all the time now. As the Knoxville Metro grows, that's a great thing too, because mom and dad can get there easily or more easily at least, from anywhere.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think that anytime you can make that trip easier for everybody, that's a big part of it as well. So NIL, there's a lot, rev share, there's lots of things going on there that changes the dynamics of it a lot.
So 5 players from Alabama, 6 from California, 2 from Colorado. We mentioned Brian Grant is the only one from Florida, 20 out of Georgia.
Yeah.
The majority of them from the Atlanta area. And let's face it too, when Tennessee has been good over the years, they have always had a very solid number of players from the Peachtree State.
Yeah, no doubt. Georgia and North Carolina, 2 places you got to play in. Georgia can't take them all. There's great football played in the state of Georgia, and it's 3.5 hours, 4 hours away for these kids. It's an easy drive for them to come up there. It's not feeling like you're going miles and miles away. Tennessee is certainly going to continue to make as much hay as they can make in the state of Georgia. It's too good. There's too many good athletes coming out of that state, and it's been that way for a long, long time.
Vols will enter the season with 40 players on their roster from the state of Tennessee. Another good recruiting class from the state of Tennessee appears to be on the way. We'll have to wait and see how that develops towards December, but the high school football getting better in the state of Tennessee all the time. And the more people from the Volunteer state that can play for the Volunteers, well, that's a good thing. Brent Hubbs will take more of your text questions at 865-657-1278. This is the Big Orange Rewind.
Miss any of today's Rewind? Catch the full podcast with Mike Keith and Brent Hubbs. UTSports.com. We are the Vol Network. Exclusive guests, insider analysis. You know what happened, find out why and how, and what happens next. This is Big Orange Rewind.
Presented by Calhoun's, a taste of Tennessee. Grab a taste after the next Tennessee game. Calhoun's.
Moving ever closer to Saturday. 9:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Central. The Vol Network's coverage of Tennessee-Syracuse from Atlanta with Brent Hubbs, Ramon Foster, Jason Swain, Larry Stone, and me, Mike Keith. Tennessee-Syracuse, here we go.
We'll have some experts on to talk some ball on Saturday morning with Jason Swain and Ramon Foster.
We are really excited about what you guys are going to provide. Where you'll be taking text questions from the fans on game days. Obviously, Ramon Foster and Jason Swain, both Tennessee captains in their time here, both with NFL experience, both experts on the radio as well. And I think that's going to be a great show. And we're thrilled to add Larry Stone and what he's going to give us as a host, providing that overview and keeping us between the ditches. And hopefully a lot of exciting Tennessee football this season.
Yeah, no doubt. Going to be lots of stuff to talk about and lots of things to get you ready on Saturday, kind of a final tune-up there. But it's time, and this is the funnest time of the year. It's the anticipation you've been waiting for. The roller coaster's at the top of the hill, and everybody's got their hands up, and let's get it down the hill and see what happens. It should be a lot of fun. There's so much about this team that intrigues me, Mike. I think teams that have a chip on their shoulder, teams that are a little bit of an underdog, teams that have some unknowns that you're talking about. Where are they going to be in 3 weeks? How much better are they going to be? Those are fun to cover. All teams are fun to cover, but you really like watching young guys grow, and I think there's going to be a lot of young guys grow quickly on this football team.
Text questions, 865-657-1278. This is from Josh in Indiana.
All right, Josh.
Vols have a player from Indiana.
Yeah, they've
got
some
Marion
guys.
Dye from Elkhart,
who is a fantastic-looking athlete.
He's a pretty good-looking player. Okay, so Josh from Indiana wants to know, with the departure of James Pierce Jr. to the NFL, Has anyone stood out as his heir apparent, or will this be more of a group effort?
I think you're going to rotate there because that's what Rodney Garner and that's what Tim Banks believes in. So there's going to be a heavy rotation there. Again, I think Jordan Ross's development is pretty fascinating to watch. And Caleb Herring is another one that kind of slides in the right. He's heavy enough now. He's got to stay healthy, but I think his commitment to staying healthy is – I mean, he lives in the training room to make sure everything's right with some stuff that he deals with a little bit chronically. And I think he's ready to make some plays. So – is there an heir apparent? I don't know that there's an heir apparent because from a quick twitch, first step explosion standpoint, I mean, James Pierce has got all the tools there. He didn't always put it together the way you wanted him to week in and week out. But there's a reason a lot of people thought of him a year ago as a top 10 NFL draft pick. He ends up sliding down a bit to the Falcons later in the first round. But he is elite in his first step. There's not a ton of those. They don't grow those on trees all the time with that kind of explosion in first step. I do like this group overall, though.
LB in Nashville asks Brent Hubbs, do you anticipate more tempo this year with the offense?
I think they would like to. I think that, but to do that, you got to win early downs. Okay, you can't go negative on first down, or you can't turn 2nd and 1 or 2nd and 2 into 2nd and 5 with a negative play. You got to get in rhythm. That first down is so vital. It was a bit of a struggle at times last year, kind of kept them out of it. I think they've tried to get back to as much tempo as they can get back to.
Greg in Chattanooga says field goals can win and lose games. How are the kickers looking so far leading up to Saturday's game?
I'm totally comfortable with where Max Gilbert is. I think he's got a ton of confidence. I think he's always had confidence, and I think you're okay there. You never know till you go out and kick one, right? But I think he's made some important kicks for Tennessee, and I think he's got a lot of confidence in where he's at.
Parker in Murfreesboro asks, do we see a world where, along with the wide receivers, we try to get Joey Aguilar moving around on keepers, option plays, along with possible RPOs? I
think that's a part. Should be a part of his game. I think his legs. You've looked at him a lot. He can use his legs effectively on the move. I think the RPO game is always in play. I think Tennessee will probably try to use it more than they have. I think it's going to be more RPO type stuff instead of straight quarterback draw plays. I think there's going to be more RPO reads in it, but we'll see. And now that you know he's your guy and he has an understanding of what this offense is, you're really now starting to tailor to him. What do you like? What fits your game best? We'll tweak some things and we'll tailor our big offensive package into things you're most comfortable with and build off that as the season goes along, which I think is going to make for a fun advancement at that position.
With his ability to run and with the fact that he's 24 years old and he's played a lot of football, it would seem like Tennessee could run true RPOs due to the fact that in most cases, RPOs really don't have an R. They may go through the motion, and do the look like, oh, I may hand it off or but there's no R for the quarterback. He's either going to hand it off or he's going to throw it. He's not going to pull it out and run it. In Joey's case, however, that may happen.
Yeah, I think, and that's when Tennessee's cooking, and moving on offense, and that's what Tennessee fans are getting back to with the Hendon Hooker world. Hendon Hooker played a true RPO game. Mm-hmm. He would certainly read the defensive end or whatever his key was, and he had no problem pulling it and taking off with it. I don't think that was Joe Milton's specialty. I don't think that's where he was most comfortable. And
Joe's not a great runner. He's a great athlete who can run, but he's not making people miss.
Right. And I think Hendon was comfortable doing that.
Oh, yeah.
And what they did with Hendon in 22 I thought was really smart in that they used him in big games. They used the legs in big games. In other games, let's make sure you stay healthy here. Let's be smart about this. Big game, we need you. We got to run you. We're going to run you against Florida. We're going to run you against Alabama. I think that as this thing progresses, they'll manage Joey Aguilar in some of those ways as well. But he's going to run some.
Chase in Charlotte starts with a thought. Tennessee has 2 1,000-yard rushers. Thoughts? Could it happen?
It could happen. My guess would be probably no. If I were taking the bet there, I'd probably say no. But I think you will see 2. I think they're going to play 3. I think Star Thomas has just said, you know what, you're going to play me some because I can help you. And so I think they're going to divide it up more over 3 guys than 2 guys. If it's 2 guys, history says yes, because Tennessee's rushed for 2,500 yards or more every year Josh Heupel's been the head coach at the University of Tennessee. It's never happened before in the modern era. So
over 11,000 rushing yards in 4 seasons.
I mean, everybody talks about Jalen Hyatt, throw it over their head. They're 7 yards behind everybody. But you look up, they are rooted in running the football. There is so much to this offense that is about running the football, and they're committed to running the football, Mike. Listen, if it's a 2-headed monster, then yes, to Chase's point, there will be 2,000-yard rushers.
Well, but part of the problem to have 2,000-yard rushers is your quarterback may run for a bunch of yards too,
which could mess it up.
Which would take away yards from the back. So we'll see. Update us on Chris Brazzell and Boo Carter are both ready. That's from Mike H.
Chris Brazzell is physically getting ready. He is rounding into form and rounding into shape after having a procedure late in July that limited him and kept him off the practice field. He has been on the practice field for about 10 days now and getting the cardio back where he needs to be, and he will be ready to go and at the receiver position. Josh Heupel has said Boo Carter is doing the things he needs to do. He has stopped short of making any kind of great declaration about anything, but if he continues on the path this week the way he has been, I think Boo Carter will be a factor defensively and in the return game moving forward here. That doesn't mean necessarily that he's going to start. I don't know what the rotation will look like at the star position, but if Boo Carter continues to handle himself the way he's supposed to, I think Boo Carter is going to play in the opener against Syracuse.
Z from Straw Plains. Based on recruiting rankings, we have more talent than we've ever had under Josh Heupel. So why is everyone lower on this team compared to the past few years? Is it just the quarterback being different or how young some of these guys are now?
I think it's both. I think the easy answer for people looking at Tennessee from afar, Mike, is, well, they lost a quarterback. They lost the starting quarterback in April. He just up and left them. And so they're not going to be very good. Well, they lost 4 offensive linemen. Well, you're going to take a step back there. Well, they lost the SEC's Offensive Player of the Year. Well, you got to be taking a step back in the run game. They have 57% of the wide receivers in the wide receiver room have never put on a uniform and stood on the sidelines of a college football game before. Well, you're not going to be very good, right? So there's so much youth there that the talent in the rankings, he's right, but there's so much inexperience there that I think a lot of people go, man, they're going to really struggle early on offense. And I don't think the defense got enough credit last year, and I don't think they've gotten enough credit.
But the defense lost a lot of production too, particularly if Jermod McCoy doesn't play. Most of your interceptions are out the door from a year ago. Most of the sacks from a year ago were out the door. A lot of your big plays on defense are out the door. I mean, this is a team that on paper doesn't return a lot of production and yet may be more talented than they were in 2024.
I think that's a fair statement. I don't think there's any doubt that that's the case. I think when you look at them from a talent standpoint, I think Tennessee, with an improved Lance Hurd and the talent of David Sanders, is better at offensive tackle than they were. They're just not very experienced at offensive tackle. You're going to play a guy out there who's never played it in a college game before. I think when you look at Jesse Perry from a talent standpoint, he stacks up very well to what they had at guard last year. From a talent standpoint, he's not played. And so it is a youth movement. The question is, as Josh Heupel has said all offseason, you don't have time to be young. They're still young. How quickly do they get young out of them? And how much does that young and that youth show up on Saturday in critical situations? That's what will keep this coaching staff restless this week, getting ready for Syracuse.
Brad from Green Hills asks, how many offensive touches would you look to give Boo Carter per game?
I don't think that's a factor right now. I think Boo Carter's got to be about Boo Carter getting himself back right, doing all the little things he needs to do on and off the field, and get himself back to the defensive side of the ball. I don't think there's a big Boo Carter package out of the gates. We'll see if something develops right now, but it certainly doesn't feel like that to me. I think it's been more about Boo Carter, taking care of Boo Carter, than it is about what it grows, what other roles he might have on this football team.
Chuck from Chucky asks, what's the biggest threat from the Syracuse offense that our defense is focusing on?
I think it's got to be the explosive plays. And what do they have there? They're bringing back the Gill kid at receiver who led the ACC last year in yards per catch, I think at almost 19 yards per catch. They were a very explosive team a year ago, a lot of big plays. They're going to have to manufacture, and they're going to have some big plays in their arsenal, Mike, because they're playing a sophomore running back who had 130 total yards last year, so they're a little bit unproven there. They've got 5 transfers on their offensive line who are all trying to figure out how to play together. I think it's going to be much more about them leaning on the quarterback and trying to throw it around the ball yard a little bit, which will be a challenge for Tennessee in the secondary with no Jamad McCoy and some youth that you're trying to build in and get ready back there at safety. And what are you going to do exactly at star? I think they're going to try to throw it, and so I think that would be the threat, would be the big play threat.
You realize they threw it more than anybody in the country last year?
A ton. Kyle
Jeff
McCoy,
Nixon. He had Kyle McCord throw it all over the yard.
Yeah, he was throwing it. And, they got a little bit banged up at running back, so they probably leaned on that even more as the season went along. But I think they got into a deal where they said, you know what, our best chance to win is with Kyle McCord's arm. And he did a good job, with the exception of the Pitt game. The Pitt game was not very good for him. He threw 5 interceptions. They threw it 65 times in the Pitt game. I mean, it was just abandon the run and throw it. And that's who they became offensively. I'm not sure that's exactly how they want to play, but that's where they were at their best a year ago. It still feels like that's kind of where they are right now. We'll see if that is what that looks like.
And that leads us into the Built Ford Tough report, where we will talk about Syracuse more in depth and sort of give you a little feel for who's playing, as we've now learned some of the names and numbers as we get closer. That's coming up next on Big Orange Rewind, presented by Calhoun's. Love these text questions. Keep them coming. 865-657-1278.
Big Orange Rewind on the Vol Network.
Sponsored by Food City, the official supermarket and tailgating headquarters of the Vols. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee. Complete coverage for every phase of life. Alumni Hall, the ultimate volunteer shopping experience. By Farm Bureau Insurance of Tennessee, the official insurance of the Vols. Tennessee Insurance for Tennessee Life. Co-op, proudly supplying your rural lifestyle in Big Orange Country. And by UT Medical Center, the official healthcare provider of the Vols and all of Vol Nation.
We hear about it every day. Americans are looking for ways to be cleaner and less wasteful, more environmentally responsible. They also want warmth, comfort, and style. Plenty of hot water. Reliable performance. Now more than ever, there's something special about natural gas. It's the one energy source that can make both your home and your conscience completely comfortable. Natural gas.
Every farming operation has a story with a past, present, and future. Farm Credit Mid-America wants to get to know your farm story because we're a lending cooperative owned by farmers. And that's why we offer a range of loans and services designed to help farmers grow and prosper. Because we know why no one knows a farmer like a farmer does. Learn more about Farm Credit Mid-America and some of our farmer stories at FCMA.com. Loan subject to credit approval. Additional terms and conditions may apply. Farm Credit Mid-America is an equal opportunity lender.
You're shopping for hard-working apparel or searching for the right ration for your cattle, Co-op is here to supply your rural lifestyle. With just the right selection of products to help round out your chore list, our family of co-ops is driven to serve everyone living in Big Orange Country, supplying essential supplies for the farm and home. Find a location near you by visiting ourcoop.com and go Co-op.
In this town, we don't just root for the team. We are the team. We rise before the sun, stay long after the lights go out. We are Big Orange Country. And with this team stands another, UT Medical Center. We heal the hurt, fuel the comeback, keep Vol Nation stronger, tougher, together, with care that never lets up. UT Medical Center, official healthcare provider of the Vols, and all of Vol Nation.
a look back and what's next. Big Orange Rewind, presented by Calhoun's.
It's time to take an in-depth look at the Vols' opponent, the Syracuse Orange, with the Built Ford Tough Report brought to you by your local Ford dealer. Tennessee football and the Ford F-150 Tough runs in our family. Syracuse returns only 7 starters from last year's 10-win team. After a preseason battle, Steve Angeli has been named the starting quarterback to start the season. Angeli is a transfer from Notre Dame who's completed 72% of his career passes, 10 touchdowns, just 1 interception. He inherits an Orange offense that led the nation in passing last year. Wide receiver Jonte Cook, a high-profile transfer from Texas, is perhaps the most explosive playmaker in a deep and talented wide receiver room for the Orange. On defense, senior safety Deuce Chestnut is the leading returning tackler from last year's team. Punter Jack Stonehouse set the school net punting record last year and is a 2-time All-ACC selection. This Built Ford Tough report was brought to you by your local Ford dealer, proud sponsor of the Tennessee Volunteers. Brent Hubbs, start with Angeli. What is he all about? He was a big-name recruit out of Bergen Catholic in New Jersey coming out who did choose Notre Dame initially.
Yeah, he's done a nice job. He just didn't win the job at Notre Dame. You look at 72% completion percentage. A lot of that's in mop-up duty. I get it. But he's played in some critical situations too. 10 touchdowns, 1 interception, taking care of the ball. He's not going to be this athletic run-around guy. But, you know, what they did last year was a lot of quick game, get it out of your hands, and then try to throw it over the top of you. And that's how you end up with 4,700 yards passing. They didn't even try to run it at times last year, basically. And so that was the attraction for him is, hey, I'm come up here and I'm going to play in this offense, and I'm going to throw it around the ball yard all the time and go from there. I think he's an accurate passer. I don't think he's a guy who moves a lot, so I don't think the quarterback run's going to be in there. So if you're Tennessee, you're just trying to squeeze that pocket, and you're trying to get some pressure in his face and get him unsettled as much as you can. Ton of shotgun, ton of just catch it, throw it, a lot of get it out of your hands fast.
Will Nixon is the offensive coordinator's son. He will rotate through at running back along with Yassine Willis, a sophomore from Newark, New Jersey, who weighs 235 pounds. Something you don't see a lot of anymore. You don't see a lot of the big back in college football. All the backs, it seems like, are all like realistically Will Nixon is, 5'11", 205. Real challenge for a defense who's done some live tackling in the preseason, but not a lot.
Yeah, and I think the question is, when you look at that, what does Syracuse want to morph into offensively? Do they want to be a team that throws it that much and throw it nearly 5,000 yards, passing yards, or do they want to help a defense out that struggled and maybe say, hey, we'll play a little more ball control here and see if we can run it more effectively? I think that's going to be interesting to see what happens. Will Nixon's coming off Liz Frank surgery, so how effective is he going to be? Is this going to be Willis and a lot of Willis and a lot more Willis? And do they get back to trying to be a little more committed to the run game, which they completely just kind of abandoned early on last year? Because that can change. And to your point about Tennessee, a lot of thuds, not a lot of tackling. How does that show up in game one? Tennessee been pretty good out of the gates tackling the last couple of years through some of the fundamental work they've been. But I think you're always worried about tackling in your first game of the season, and you throw a big body like that in there, plus some of their space guys. At both sides of the ball, both coaches are going to be worried about tackling.
Dan Valeri is a really good-looking senior tight end, too, who's about a 250-pound guy. Would feel like Angeli would like to use him.
Yeah, and I wonder, I don't know Kyle McCord's strengths and weaknesses compared to Angeli well enough to know, do they really morph the offense or do they change in any way, shape, or form? But it feels like Angeli could play a little more pro style if that's the direction that they wanted to go with it, with a big back and a tight end, a vertical big play threat, and then mess around with Cook and the slot and see what happens with them that way. So game ones are always fascinating. This one's going to be really fascinating because I'm not sure either side knows a whole lot about themselves. Now, I will say this. Fran Brown was on Georgia's staff for 2 years. 22 and 23. He knows exactly what Josh Heupel has wanted to do offensively. Maybe there's a little bit of an advantage there. Maybe they don't know the personnel, but they know style of play a little bit better.
Well, I've got some good news here. We're going to get to hear a lot about a 17-year-old player.
Oh,
in this
really?
game. Yes.
I've never heard one of those.
I know.
That storyline's back again
Yes.
for another year?
Yes.
Great. That's what we all want to have.
He's from Palm Bay, Florida, Demetrius Samuel Jr., who is going to start at corner and may play some wide receiver too. He is a spectacular athlete. He has just turned 17, reclassified, would be a young senior this year, as a matter of fact, in high school. 17 years old. He'll be one of the starting corners from the Orange, one of their most highly touted recruits, certainly in the 2 years Fran Brown's been there, but probably in the last 5 to 10 years.
So you're going to have a 17-year-old go against maybe a just turned 18-year-old in Rodarius Jackson. You don't think college football is becoming a young man's game? I mean, you got to think about that. I mean, you got a 24-year-old quarterback who might be throwing to an 18-year-old, just turned 18-year-old receiver who's going up against a 17-year-old corner. There's a lot of life between 24 and 17. That'll be pretty interesting to see how they go at it.
You and I discussed on the practice field. We're watching Joey Aguilar and George McIntyre, and they're 6 years apart in age. And the difference between a 24-year-old and an 18-year-old is vast anyway. But in the case, I mean, George had a really good camp, but he's obviously got to put on some weight. And it'd be interesting. I can't wait to see George when he's 24, because I think he'll be a tremendous-looking athlete and be a great quarterback. But the difference in those ages is just massive with the COVID kids and then the kids who do like this young man Samuel and come play early.
Yeah, and now obviously Samuel's a specimen. I mean, 195 pounds as a 17-year-old's different, right? But I think it's one of those things where how ready is he physically, and can you attack, and how much – where is he at? I mean, if he's going to jump in at this point as a reclassified 17-year-old and be this big of a factor, I mean, he's pretty special athletically. So – will Tennessee try to attack him early, go after him? I would think so, and see how he reacts to what you throw at him, because he's so young and he's so inexperienced. How does he handle any early rounds of adversity, if you can put that on him?
865-657-1278, the text line. Gary in Ottawa wants to know, how do we feel about our linebacker core this year, Brent?
I like them. I think Arion Carter's got a chance to really be special if he could stay healthy. I think that he's really started to figure it out. I think his knowledge of the game, we talk about young 17-year-old coming in. Think about Arion Carter coming in, had played basically 1 year linebacker. And now he's moving into a college system. It's very complex, trying to learn the position. He's got 2 years under his belt playing linebacker. I think that he's had a really good offseason. I like him. I like Jeremiah Thielander and what he can do and kind of what play into his strengths. And I really like William Inge as a teacher, as Tennessee's linebackers coach. I think he's an excellent teacher. Spillman's going to be a guy who's going to play up. I don't think anybody's talking about Jordan Burns. I think Jordan Burns can be in that rotation as kind of the fourth linebacker, and I don't think it's like fall off the cliff when you rotate somebody in there. I think Jordan Burns has got all the athletic ability. He's got to clean up some mental things. But, boy, he's got a lot of tools to work with when I watch him run around out there. There's a lot of people in this program think that he's got a chance to be good if he can put it all together.
Randy from Mohawk, seems as if there may be more player leadership this year with older guys like Arion Carter and Miles Kitselman. Thoughts?
I think those guys made a real commitment in April after everything went down, with Nico leaving, where they said – we've got to be a closer football team. And I think in this day and age, Mike, you have to be more committed to that than ever before, because everybody's dealing with things differently. Everybody on the roster is making different amounts of money. Used to, everybody was kind of in it together, right? Man, this is hard. This is not any good. Well, I'd think about leaving, but if I leave, I got to sit out for a year. Man, I don't have any money to go to Taco Bell and get any tacos tonight because I'm waiting on my check to come in next month for my scholarship aid, extra aid that I'm getting. Now, some of them are going to their own home, the home that they've purchased. So everybody's in a very different space. So I think because of what they went through, it was a reminder to some guys, you know what, we need to lead. We need to be a tighter-knit team. That's why they did so many of the dinners that they did, kind of cross positions. And it was a real point of emphasis by Josh Heupel for this team to get back to being close. And I think you have to work at that because everybody's in such a different place in their life, even though they may be the same age and in the same class. They're in a very different place in their life than the other one.
You're listening to Big Orange Rewind, presented by Calhoun's, a taste of Tennessee. More of your questions via the text line at 865-657-1278.
Tennessee fans, your game day isn't complete without Calhoun's. Whether you're inside Neyland Stadium for the game or tailgating on campus or at home, Calhoun's has you covered with shareable small bites, family feed packs, and party platters. Imagine your tailgate piled high with hickory smoked ribs, tender pulled pork, and that famous barbecue chicken. The best of Tennessee on one plate. Call ahead or order online and make your game day legendary. Calhoun's, a taste of Tennessee.
At the University of Tennessee, the Vols are known for competing at the highest level on the field, the court, and the diamond. And just like the Vols, Food City excels at everything too. They've got in-store butchers carving up certified Angus beef, fresh local produce, a full-service bakery, Fuel Bucks rewards, and one of the best beer and wine selections in town. Food City, the official supermarket of the Vols, and your home for everything Tennessee.
UT fans know it takes teamwork to win. And when you choose Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee, you get a team who served Tennesseans for 80 years. From babies to seniors, big needs to small, we offer health coverage that fits your life and your budget. All from a company right here in your community. Now that's what we call a big win. Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee.
In Tennessee, it means something to be a volunteer. From the Smoky Mountains to the Mississippi River, this state bleeds orange. You not only root for the volunteers, you are one. And there's a company based right here in the volunteer state that's dedicated to protecting what matters most. At Farm Bureau Insurance of Tennessee, our local agents make the difference.
Their agents are there when you need them. Tennessee turns to Farm Bureau Insurance, the official insurance of the Vols.
The Big Orange Rewind continues, presented by Calhoun's.
Calhoun's, 9 convenient locations in Knoxville and surrounding areas. Look for Calhoun's inside Neyland Stadium this season. Big story last week, SEC going to 9 conference games in 2026. You'll have 3 permanent opponents, and then 6 teams will rotate. Who are your permanents for Tennessee?
I did something on the site, and I had Alabama, Vanderbilt, and then I went a little bit off script and said South Carolina instead of Kentucky. I think you could interchange there, and I think Tennessee would be happy with that. A lot of people thinking maybe Florida. Florida drops LSU and picks up Tennessee to keep the rivalry intact. I think how the SEC goes about determining based on geography, rivalry, and competitive balance in this league is a really hard equation to solve when you look at it.
If you're doing tradition, Tennessee has played Vanderbilt, Kentucky, and Alabama each over 100 times. So you would say that would be easy. But how are they going to do 16 teams in that way with 6 of them not having nearly as much SEC history as others? Obviously, Arkansas and South Carolina have only been in the league for now 33 years. Missouri has been in the league for 20.
Has it been that long? I guess it has.
Missouri and Texas A&M, I guess.
I'm old.
They came together, and then Texas and Oklahoma are completely new. So we shall see what they choose to do. Many people wondering, too, it means you're going to have years where you have 5 home conference games, and then the next year you'll have 4 home conference games. So how are they going to determine that to start with? Well, you would think how they would determine it to start with would be to look at the schedule and see which teams have non-conference games on the road scheduled for next year. Now, if you don't, then you would feel like you would probably be a team that in 2026 would start with 4. So Auburn, Vanderbilt, Kentucky, LSU, Texas, and Texas A&M, 6 teams, all have all of their non-conference games at home.
Okay.
So you would figure they would start off in 2026 with 4 instead of 5 home conference games.
Makes sense.
Here's where it gets interesting. 10 teams in the SEC have non-conference games on the road next year. So if they started with 4, they would each have 6 road games instead of having 7, instead of having 7 home games, they would have only 6. Tennessee plays at Georgia Tech. That was a series they had to fight hard to get because they lost the Nebraska series. They go to Georgia Tech in 2027. Or, excuse me, Georgia Tech comes to Knoxville in 2027.
Correct.
Alabama begins a home-and-home at West Virginia next year. Arkansas goes to Utah. Georgia plays at Louisville. Florida plays at Florida State. It's their turn in the rivalry. South Carolina plays at Clemson. That's their turn in the rivalry. Ole Miss plays at Charlotte. Mississippi State plays at Minnesota.
The ever-popular series between the Golden Gophers and the Bulldogs.
I'm just
right?
reading it. Missouri plays at Kansas.
Okay.
And they want that rivalry to pick up. Both teams do. And Oklahoma plays at Michigan. So you have 10 teams with road non-conference games next year, and you can only have 8 that end up with 5 home conference games, and 8 end up with 4. And so what do you do for, there are 10 right there.
Well, I think 2 of them, I think if you're looking at that and you want to get it to where it's on a regular schedule, then Florida should have the extra SEC game at home next year because they're going to always play Florida State.
Right.
So get them on the schedule,
so
right?
They're one of the 8. They're one of your 8. Okay, so you got 9 more. Keep going.
Okay, so then I'm going to give.
I mean, you got to do the same thing with South Carolina and
right.
Clemson.
Both of them.
Okay, so that's 2.
Okay.
So you've got 6 more spots, but you've got 8 teams who are in this mess. Now, one thing that would jump out to me that could help you is Ole Miss playing at Charlotte. That's not a Power 4 opponent.
Right. So, all right.
Now, I'm not going to tell Ole Miss how to run their business, though, because they would have to buy their way out of it. But, I mean, do you just tell them if they don't, they're only going to end up with 4 home conference games next year? All right.
I mean, who is Ole Miss's Power 4 opponent that they're playing next year?
I don't think they have one.
That's the Wake Forest game that got canceled
Yes.
on them. So do you punish them for something where they said, if we didn't want out of that
They
game.
didn't want out of it.
They backed out of the game.
That's right.
They pulled themselves out of it.
Well, I mean,
it's not our fault.
You've got Oklahoma at Michigan. Well, I mean, if you're the SEC, Oklahoma's doing exactly what you ask them to do.
Right.
So I think you got to give them that. I mean, if you're Tennessee, you got to battle hard after what you went through to say, hey, guys, we can't mess with this Georgia Tech away than home in 2027.
No. I mean, you were fortunate to get that one.
Yes.
Very fortunate to get that one.
But it just seems like
somebody's not going to be happy.
Somebody.
Listen.
And you could really look at it here and say, I mean, because everybody, you got 10 teams with a case to get 5 home conference games next year, but only 8 can.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing that you have too. So in this scenario, you're going to have that play out. Who's going to be unhappy? ADs are going to be unhappy because it costs you money.
Sure.
Okay. Then you're going to have the 3 permanent rivalries Who's going to be unhappy about that? The coaches.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's not going to like their draw. It's unfair compared to somebody else's, and they're going to go back and say, see, this is why we didn't want to play 9. We told you we didn't want to play 9. Why are we playing 9?
You figure this is probably coming early fall, as in late September, early October, we'll hear.
What, in terms of who the opponents?
Who the opponents are, yeah.
Permanents?
Maybe not the exact schedule, but maybe your conference opponents next year.
Well, certainly I think your permanents will get announced. Then we'll see when they're going to do their made-for-TV event to reveal everything, which is going to happen at some point, probably late October, 1st November, I would think.
So Tennessee goes to Georgia Tech September 12th, 2026. Yellow Jackets come back to Knoxville in 2027. So if Tennessee went 5 next year, 5 home conference games, and then 4 the following year, it would work because in 2028, Tennessee plays West Virginia, neutral site game in Charlotte. 2029, the Vols are scheduled to host Washington on September 1st, and then they go to Seattle to face the Huskies on September 7th, 23rd.
And so if you're the SEC and you're looking at those things, hey, if we can get them with 5 now,
yes,
it plays out perfectly.
I think you try
for the
to
next
do it,
5 years. I think you try to do that with everybody if you can.
You try to do that with as many of them as you can. Like, for example, Alabama is another one that stacks up right off the bat that way, but then Alabama has some other road contingencies that they've hit down the line which would throw them off kilter.
Well, and look at Florida. They've got some non-conference outside of Florida State against the power. They got to be thinking, I'm going to get out of those deals.
Sure.
We're bailing out of that deal because Florida State's going to be our Power 5 every year because we're not ending that rivalry.
No.
So we don't have to schedule a Power 5.
But
non-conference.
But honestly, I mean, Arkansas at Utah, that's a good matchup. Mm-hmm. In terms of what they want for strength of schedule, that's a good matchup.
It is. No doubt.
I mean, Mississippi State at Minnesota. I mean, Minnesota has a nice program.
Well, and again, I mean, it's not geographically kind of where that came from, and that came from about because the league had said before they went to 9 games, hey, everybody's got to play. You can't just stack 4, smaller opponents. You got to have a Power 4 opponent in there, and so Mississippi State had to go find one. They find Minnesota. Arkansas has to find one. They find Utah. And so those are already in place in a lot of cases. Now how the SEC balances that out, I'm telling you, they're going to be some mad people. They're going to be some mad
But I tell you,
people.
for TV, this is going to be such a big deal because now, I mean, next week's schedule is outstanding, and we'll talk about it after a break. But it's not conference. And now I believe you'll have conference games in week 1.
Early.
I mean, you'll have to because, I mean, for example, Tennessee next year opens the season with Furman on September 5th. Then we mentioned goes to Georgia Tech and then comes home for Kennesaw State on September 19th.
Yeah, you're probably going to have a conference game in the first 3 weeks. You have to have a conference game in your first 3 weeks next year.
Yeah, well, you're going to have a conference game, I would think, August 30th.
Yeah, on week 1.
You would think. One would think. We'll think about it. And we'll be back. Big Orange Rewind, presented by Calhoun's. More time for at least a couple more text questions at 865-657-1278.
Today's Big Orange Rewind, sponsored by
First Horizon Bank, Big Bank Solutions, Small Bank Spirit, the official bank of the Vols. Swaggerty's Farm Sausage, quite possibly the best tasting sausage in America. By the Tennessee Fund. Join the My All campaign today at IWillGiveMyAll.com. Rackley Roofing, the official roofer of the Vols. And by Ford. Visit your local Ford dealer. Proud sponsor of the Tennessee Volunteers.
It's football time in Tennessee, and the Vol Shop on campus has everything you need to support the Big Orange. With a 15,000 square foot store in the Student Union, the Vol Shop is stocked full of official sideline gear from Nike, along with great apparel from brands like Champion, Volunteer Traditions, New Era, and Lululemon. And don't forget to check out the Vol Shop's large variety of NIL merchandise. If you can't make it to campus, shop online at utvolshop.com. And be sure to follow them on social media. That's the Vol Shop, the official campus store of the University of Tennessee.
A farm, a family, and a tradition of premium fresh sausage that's lasted almost a century. using only the freshest ingredients and finest cuts of meat for flavor that is locked in instantly. Each bite of Swaggerty's Farm sausage transports you back to a warm, cozy southern kitchen, leaving you satisfied and ready to take on the day. Swaggerty's Farm, quite possibly the best tasting sausage in America. Now available at your local retailers.
From the practice field to the fourth quarter, our attitude is always the same. Confidence and commitment can turn your dreams into reality. Where there's a dream, there's a way. And that's First Horizon's philosophy. Big bank muscle, small bank hustle. Over 160 years of banking based right here in the Volunteer State. It's no wonder First Horizon is the official bank of Tennessee Athletics.
It's football time in Tennessee, and that means it's time for Calhoun's. Whether you're headed to the game or watching from home, make Calhoun's your pregame, postgame, and every game headquarters. From hickory smoked pulled pork to the legendary ribs, juicy burgers, and mouthwatering brisket, Calhoun's delivers the flavor that fuels Big Orange fans. With 9 convenient East Tennessee locations, there's a Calhoun's near you. So gather your friends, wear your orange, and experience why they're the taste of Tennessee. Calhoun's, proud to serve ball fans since 1983.
The Vol Network's Big Orange Rewind continues. Presented by Calhoun's.
Red Hubs, the football starts Thursday night. Central Arkansas at Missouri. Central Arkansas, the Mule Riders. Can we check that? Our crack staff here
Sure.
for Big Orange Rewind.
If you say so. The Mule Riders, really?
I wanted to say that's right.
You wouldn't know.
Central
better
Arkansas at Missouri. Friday night, Auburn at Baylor.
That was an intriguing game. That whole Auburn situation is really intriguing from the standpoint of you're going to potentially play 3 quarterbacks, and then the whole who's calling plays on what downs. I don't know how that's supposed to work, but this is it's been a very loud offseason in Auburn, and not in a good way for the Auburn Tigers. Fascinating to see how they play on Friday night, what they look like.
Brent, I've made a horrible mistake already.
Is that right?
Yes, it's just like my first tenure on the Vol Network.
They're not the
Southern
Mule.
Arkansas would be the Mule Riders. What's Central? Well, I mean, you could have told me that. We're working on it.
What are they?
Saturday. Well, I was trying to find that out. They're like, I don't know. Come on.
So we know what they're not.
We know Tennessee's the Volunteers, and Syracuse has been the Orange for 21 years now. What's Central?
What did they go to the Orange?
Bears/Sugar Bears. Central Arkansas Bears/Sugar Bears.
They don't really go Bears/. Surely they go Sugar Bears, right?
I mean, I hope so.
Let's go Sugar Bears. That's a much better name than just
Syracuse
Bears.
is the Orange. Also at noon on Saturday, Texas at Ohio State.
Whoa.
1 versus 2.
There's your college football that everybody who is in charge of programming is wanting to see a bunch of that week 1. Maybe not 1 versus 2, but meaningful games in week 1 that has everybody's attention.
Mississippi State at Southern Miss. Toledo at Kentucky. Did you know Toledo's picked to win the MAC?
Yeah, that is not exactly how you want to open your season.
That's the old 4-foot putt to win the tournament.
That's the week 1 knee knocker. This is not supposed to go this way.
Marshall at Georgia. Alabama at Florida State. Alabama A&M at Arkansas. Illinois State at Oklahoma. Charleston Southern at Vanderbilt. UT San Antonio at Texas A&M. Long Island at Florida. LSU at Clemson. That's 7:30 Saturday night.
You know what?
We'll be home in time for that.
Yeah, I mean, LSU's played one of those games seemingly for about the last 5 years. USC in Vegas, or they've had one of those big time opening games. This is a Clemson team that the Clemson faithful and the Clemson program believe they're really, really good, and so that one will be fun to watch.
Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is they have not done the transfer portal, and they have done recruiting. And so they've stockpiled a team, and this is what he said he was going to do.
Yep.
He said, I'm going to build a team, and I'm going to keep the team together, and we're going to make sure our guys are taken care of. And so now he's got that.
He does. Against an LSU team that brings back a quarterback that a lot of people believe is a Sunday guy, and Garrett Nussweiler. The question at LSU is how much better are they going to be defensively this year? Have they figured anything out defensively? Because that's where they had such a hard time a year ago. What do they look like defensively against a Clemson team?
What do they look like in week one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they have a little bit of a history.
Yep, they do, of doing some interesting things in week one, not playing their best football for sure. But that's an intriguing matchup. There's two or three that get your attention of curiosity. You know, that Auburn-Baylor matchup, that matchup you're talking about, certainly Texas, Ohio State. But Kentucky, how much better is Mississippi State? Now, I know they're playing Southern Miss, who's not very good. But what does State look like in year two with that system in place?
Well, and here's what's interesting about State if you're Tennessee. And this is something that really gets my attention about them, is they've got, if they get through Southern Miss, they have a really favorable schedule waiting on the Vols.
Depends on what that Arizona State game looks like at home.
So they've got Southern Miss. They're at Southern Miss, and then they've got Arizona State at home. Long trip for Arizona State.
Absolutely.
If they were to win both of them, they've got Alcorn State.
Yep.
And then they've got Northern Illinois, who's picked 5th in the MAC. Doesn't look like as good a Northern Illinois team as what Hammock had last year. Year 7 with him as the coach, so they're formidable, but could Mississippi State be 4-0 when Tennessee gets to Starkville on September?
To me, it hinges around what that Arizona State game goes when you look at their schedule. But they're there, you know, that's probably going to be under the lights, and that place will be rowdy.
Oh yeah,
that is a game a lot of people have circled early on as kind of a litmus test for both Tennessee and Mississippi State, certainly.
Here's another interesting one: Georgia State at Ole Miss. So most people will be watching LSU at Clemson. But Georgia State at Ole Miss, and Lane Kiffin has already made it clear he knows exactly who Georgia State is. He knows what they did to Vanderbilt last year. He knows about them beating Tennessee. I mean, he clearly is trying to sound the alarm. I mean, that's not a gimme.
Nope, it's not, because you're an Ole Miss team. You should win. You're a better team, but
Sure.
You're trying to figure out who you are. You've brought in a bunch of transfers. How do they all mesh together? There's certainly plenty of unknown and intrigue in that one. There's a couple of those games that when you see it written down on paper, you go, oh, that's a win. But then you start looking at it, looking at the history.
Like the Toledo at Kentucky.
Yeah, you go, well, wait a minute. That one may not be the laydown everybody thinks that one is going to be.
Yeah, Kentucky should beat Toledo.
Should.
But,
yeah, I mean, it's again, week one games are kind of goofy anyway. And if you got a veteran team coming in versus a team kind of finding themselves, all the pressure's on Kentucky. All the pressure's on Ole Miss in those games. That's why you end up seeing that game in the fourth quarter, like Louisiana Monroe leading Auburn at Auburn a couple of years ago in the fourth quarter, and you're going, you know, those are the games that become knee knockers because it's the SEC team that has all the pressure.
And then the Beamer Bowl on Sunday in Atlanta. And this is the reason Tennessee is playing Syracuse at noon, by the way, folks, is because there's another game at Mercedes-Benz Stadium the next day, South Carolina against Virginia Tech.
Yeah, and the South Carolina team with a ton of expectations because of Lenore Sellers.
What are they, ranked 13th?
Yeah, but, I mean, coming off the way they finished, felt like they could have been a playoff team, had a couple things gone their way, the LSU call in that game. They feel like this is their time now. How did they handle expectations? Different mindset that you have to have when everybody's building you up. A year ago, they weren't building anybody up because they didn't know anything about Lenore Sellers. Now, Heisman Trophy candidate, 10 wins, should have been a playoff team. A lot of pressure on South Carolina out of the gate.
Oh, and by the way, their offensive coordinator last year is now the head coach at Appalachian State in Dow Loggins. And so now they've got to find out, can we get this offense rolling the same way with a new OC?
Yeah, it is. And again, opening games are unique because you have different coaches, you have concerns about turnovers, you have somebody's had a whole summer to prepare for you. What do they look like? And then where's Virginia Tech right now? I think that's the unknown is where is Tech and where is Tech's program at building momentum moving forward.
Think we should do this again next week?
If you'll have me, I think
All right.
I'll come back. You
Okay.
going to have me?
If they'll have us.
Okay,
yeah.
they'll have us. We'll come back.
Big Orange Rewind is presented by Calhoun's, a taste of Tennessee. Thank you to everyone who contributed text questions at 865-657-1278. Hint, we'll be using that on all other Vol Network shows, so you might want to jot that down. Our general manager is Brandon Parks. Executive Director Glenn Thaxton. Director of Business Development is Josh Payrow. Account executives Chuck Arnold, Kevin Ashmos, Ben Bates, Nick Bell, Savannah Chalfont, Brandon Lane, Jessica Leifheit, Spencer Rudder, and Chris Wagner. Our technical director is Tim Barry. Studio engineer for the network is Jay Leifert. Network producer is Eli Davis. Associate Director of VFL Films, Ashley Farrell and Travis Dean. And our Director of Radio Projects is Larry Stone. For Brent Hubbs, I'm Mike Keith. Thanks for listening to Big Orange Rewind.
Big Orange Rewind.
Presented by Calhoun's, a taste of Tennessee. Calhoun's is the perfect place to rewind after every Tennessee game.
Rewind one more time to this weekend's action. Catch the podcast at utsports.com. Big Orange Rewind. We are the Vol Network.